Got a great show lined up for you here on Retiring Well, talking through the 3 stages of retirement. What stage do you find yourself in right now? Along with that, at what age will you retire? That's super important to know, as well as what are target dated funds. You might have those in your 401k and not be aware of that. Along with that, financial jargon explained. So much information that can be confusing, but that's our job to hopefully help you plan to retire well.
Retiring Well, brought to you by Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial advisors specializing in retirement planning and serving all of Northern Michigan. Retiring Well, helping you plan for a successful and comfortable retirement. Retiring Well, plan to retire well.
Retirement is the culmination of probably 40 to 50 years in the workforce. And you may love your work like I do. I really enjoyed helping people and working with numbers and doing all that. But eventually it comes to a time where you find yourself in that next chapter, that next season of life where you say, okay, it's time to move on from the workforce and just have some freedom. And so retirement can be a pretty scary time for folks, as this is completely new. It's unfamiliar territory, and you don't know what it's like after 40 to 50 years of going to work every day, and now all of a sudden it's, well, what am I going to do when I wake up in the morning? So let's walk through these 3 stages of retirement, and hopefully that'll help you feel a little more comfortable and confident as you go into retirement. So the first stage, we'll call it exploring. This is where maybe you're getting into more travel than you have in the past. Maybe there's hobbies, whether they're old hobbies or picking up new hobbies. You might have a little more free time to be able to volunteer more. And maybe it's that extra family time. I know a number of our clients have really enjoyed the opportunity to spend that extra time with their grandchildren that they wouldn't have been able to do if they were still working day in and day out. This also might involve moving to a new area. I know for a lot of our clients that may have worked downstate in southern Michigan and always wanted to retire up north, that's where they find themselves today, or maybe it's purchasing that second home. Some folks, it's starting a new business or working part-time. I think of a client recently that has a knitting hobby, and she's really enjoyed doing that over the years, and now they've been able to turn that into traveling to these different craft shows on the weekends, and she and her husband just really enjoy seeing different parts of the state that way. So shifting more from this exploring stage into the financial side of things, look at having some type of predictable income stream. So maybe you have Social Security, not sure if you have a pension, but how else are you generating income, whether that's using your portfolio, if you're going through insurance companies with annuities, having some type of known income stream, as well as be aware of the different healthcare costs, especially if you're going to be retiring prior to the age of 65 before you get on to Medicare. So you want to be really aware of that. Second stage is the nesting stage. So this is maybe where you've settled into some type of routine. You feel very comfortable with that. It's maybe more of a relaxed pace. You're not on the go quite as much in the travel that you're doing. Maybe you're staying closer to home. Maybe that's to see family or friends. Maybe less of the international travel or bigger travel that you might have been doing in the exploring stage. You may consider downsizing during this stage of retirement. Shifting again over to the financial side, if your spending starts to slow down, revisit how to prepare maybe for that next stage where long-term care could come into play. And you may want to look at, should you shift some of the assets that you have to maybe specifically be earmarked for that long-term care potential expense? Or should you take some of those assets that you say, well, I may not need this for the near term, should you take a little bit higher risk to accomplish some higher returns to have that nest egg available down the road? Lastly, the third stage is reflecting. This is where you might be a widow or a widower. You may need some additional support at this stage from family and friends, and you could encounter more health-related expenses. So from a financial side, make sure your estate plan is in good order. Ensure you've taken care of first and foremost all of those plans, but consider your legacy plan. Is it time to begin maybe gifting some of those assets onto the next generation or different charities? And regardless of what stage you find yourselves in, maybe you haven't reached any of those stages yet and you're contemplating, well, what does retirement really look like? That's where here at Centennial Wealth Advisory, we'd love the opportunity to sit down with you for no cost, no obligation, second opinion, just to help define what your retirement might look like and start mapping out some of those plans, because it's so vital to map out a plan that cohesively comes together to help you plan to retire well.
Every business says they're better, but the ones that earn and display the BBB seal back it up. It instantly identifies businesses that are committed to operating with integrity, honoring promises, and telling the truth. Makes you wonder why every business doesn't have it. So look for it, because it's looking out for you. That's why it's the sign of a better business. And find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
It's your retirement. How will you live it? How will you be remembered?
Will you be able to take me on vacation?
Will you be there for my ball games?
Will you teach me your values? You'll be able to play with me.
Oh, help me go to college. How will I remember you?
Have the retirement you dream about. Contact us today.
Are you nearing retirement or in retirement? Have you had your portfolio just looked at or have a second opinion on that portfolio recently? Centennial Wealth is a full-service advisory firm, and we have multiple locations in northern Michigan. I'm in the Gaylord office primarily. The office is right downtown Gaylord. Also up in the Petoskey office as well. That office is right off of 31. I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to sit down and chat, and it's a free, no-obligation consultation, so just call the number on the screen.
At what age will you retire? Many of you probably have a number, a dream, a wish, whatever that may be out there, but it's something that you have to start thinking about. You know, and when we start thinking about that, it's not just a day in time. There's a piece of this that it's part of your life. You know, when we work and we have careers, that begins to build and becomes part of us. And so this is a big decision. You know, when we start thinking about this, a lot of people say, I want to retire by I'm 55 or 60 or 65. Whatever that day is, start working towards that. So it's never too early to start thinking about this. Maybe you're someone that's only 25 or 30 years old. Let's have a plan. And know your 401k statement is not a plan. Just coming off spring break with my family, a wonderful vacation, it makes me think about all the times that I tell people you can't spend more time planning your next family vacation than you do your retirement. You know, retirement can be 20 to 30 years or longer. We have clients that have been drawing their pension maybe or retired longer than they were working now. So remember, this is something that has to be planned and well thought out. So let's walk through this together and start giving you some things to think about. One, set a target. Not only is that a time, but also what does retirement look like to you? What are your goals and aspirations? One, what is it that you wish and desire to be doing during that time? Is it going to a second home? Is it vacationing or wintering away? Is it spending more time with your grandkids? Start to visualize that and set that outcome. And then along with the date, what you're going to do, how much money is that going to take for you? You know, what does that budget look like? So start mapping those things out. From then, have a plan. Again, I remind you, your 401k statement is not a plan. This is a well written out retirement plan on paper that you can look back and have whether this is going to succeed or fail. You can see what this looks like over time. So now we've thought about it, we have a plan. Let's start enacting strategies that are going to help this plan come to fruition, help it succeed. And so what does that look like? You know, it's going to be your savings timelines. What are you putting away, whether that's in a 401k plan, workplace retirement, IRA, or other types of savings vehicles? What are you doing to make these goals become a reality for you? When we start to map these out, they all have a place. Again, investments. Obviously, we pick things based upon risk or maybe past historical performances, but how are those individual investments mapping out or shaping up this plan that you've put in place? Then, how is Social Security going to play a role for you? Social Security can be a huge asset when you look at it over time. For those folks that are collecting this 20, 30 years or longer, you think of the cumulative asset this is going to become. For a lot of individuals that live long enough, you're going to collect over $1 million of Social Security. When you look at it as a whole lump sum, you wouldn't blush at the idea of just throwing $1 million away. So having how you're going to plan that out is vital for your success of your plan. Tax planning. Should you be putting in pre-tax or after-tax dollars? Again, what does your plan say to be doing? Oftentimes people just pick something because it feels good today. What are the lasting impacts that has over the course of your retirement and that grand plan that you have? You know, when we get later in life and we start to pull money from these accounts, think about how they're going to be taxed and what is that implication going to have for you at that time. Now, there's some things we don't have the picture of today, right? We don't know exactly what tax rates are going to be. We don't know exactly what you're going to be spending, but we have to start thinking and putting some pieces in place so we have an idea what that is. Again, when you vision this out, are you going to be buying a second home? Is that something we should be looking at ahead of retirement or doing after retirement? Paying off debts, whether that's credit card debts, mortgage, car loans, all that sort of stuff, having that in place to start with. Again, this plan is something we don't just do once. We review and adjust accordingly, so again, it maps out success. So if you're thinking of retirement or you haven't yet, we'd love to help you along that journey and help you build this out, again, so you are confident that you're going to be able to retire when you want, so you can plan to retire well, and you're not going to spend less time planning for this beautiful time of retirement than you do for your next vacation. Retirement, something you've likely dreamed about for many years. Maybe you're approaching it here very soon or just recently retired. This is just for you then. Here at Centennial Wealth Advisory, we've created a retirement roadmap. Retirement is filled with many choices. What are you going to do with the grandkids? What trips you're going to go on? But first, we need to map out what this plan looks like. Where is the income going to come from? What investments is going to match up to produce that income? How are taxes going to look, and is there something that can be done to improve the situation today and for years down the road? Estate planning. What happens when you're gone and you're not here? What would you like to see happen with your assets and your estate and all of your loved ones that are left behind? Healthcare. You know, all the different options that exist out there and how different levels of income may dictate how much you're paying for your healthcare. Putting all those things together in a roadmap is a vital thing to retirement success. And not only that, but the confidence that you can go into that knowing you have a plan in place that allows you to enact all these dreams that you've had over the years. Simply go to our website at cen-wealth.com, and there's an area to click on to sign up for this retirement roadmap. You'll get instant download and can watch it right away. And the beautiful thing is it asks just a couple questions and it hones in and customizes it just for you and your particular situation. We hope that this video provides great value for you and again, gives you the confidence heading into your retirement so you can plan to retire well.
Living life isn't always easy. It puts up challenges and obstacles you'll have to overcome. There are responsibilities. You put in effort to provide and take care of your family, to save and invest, to balance work and life. Planning is the first step to succeeding. Plan to retire well.
Your grandchildren are precious to you. They are your life. This is your time to have that special relationship. Taking care of yourself is taking care of them. Centennial Wealth Advisory is offering a free, no-obligation retirement review to make sure you don't run out of money during your retirement. Centennial Wealth Advisory. Your best is yet to come.
Hey, welcome to the segment on what are target date funds. I'm very excited to let you learn about them, but I want to start with a quick story. If you remember the great rock band from the 70s and 80s called Van Halen, when they would go to a venue, they had to sign documents and make sure the proper safety precautions were in place. And what they did is they set up a safety-related tripwire in their contract, so that when they would go to a venue, they wanted to see if this tripwire was activated or not, and that would let them know if they needed to look further into some potential problems. So what they called it was Article 126. It was called the M&M clause, and they simply just said, hey, if we're going to play at your venue, we just want, for the band, a bowl of M&Ms. But there's a catch. We don't want any brown M&Ms. So they would get to the venue, they would go into the room, they'd see the bowl of M&Ms, and they'd check for brown M&Ms. If there were brown M&Ms, that was their tripwire to say, hey, we might need to look at some other things because potentially this venue didn't actually read the contract and the protocols that we had in place might not be followed. So what do they define a tripwire to be? Anything that can toggle your mind out of autopilot, and it gets you to make decisions better. Okay, it's a way that you can look through potentially your target date funds, as we're about to go through some potential tripwires, and say, ooh, that's a problem, we want to do something about it. So you might want to think, as I teach you these different tripwires, do you have any of these tripwires in your current retirement account funds that you're getting through your employer? Let's first define what are target date funds. Okay, these are just professionally managed investments. They're kind of a one-size-fits-all approach to equities, fixed income, asset allocation, maybe some cash. And what they're going to do is they're going to set a date as to when they think you're going to retire. And then their, quote, glide path, as you get closer to that retirement, there's a shift to more conservative investments. So instead of it being such a high equity exposure, that might be going down, and your fixed income or cash exposure would be going up. Okay? They're very popular. They were first introduced in 1994, and they currently have about $2.82 trillion in these target date funds. They're misunderstood. Okay, so target date funds, they had a survey and they figured out that 68% of the participants thought that those target date funds were FDIC insured. 57% incorrectly believe that these target date funds were 100% cash at retirement. That's not the case. And then the last one was about half, 50% of the people misunderstood that their guaranteed income would be met during their retirement years. So they thought one turnkey, this is when I'm going to retire and everything's going to be okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive into 5 different tripwires that you might be able to learn about to then go through your retirement plan and see if you need to react. The first one is called the time frame tripwire. On average, believe it or not, the average tenure for an employer-employee relationship is about 4 years in the United States right now. So when you're doing these target date funds, you know, are you really planning for the long term? If the tenure is only going to be 4 years, you know, compare how long you want to work and continue to be at that job, and then look at what your target date fund might be, adjust accordingly. The next one is your cash flow tripwire. A lot of these target date funds don't have any kind of income rider or income producing investment after you retire. And so what is that cash flow going to look like as you transition from a paycheck to retirement? And how well can these help facilitate that retirement income? The next one is the risk tripwire. This is the one that is super important to look at. If you don't know what your risk risk is in your investment, then you need to spend some time learning about it. If I'm taking a risk, it's going to be understood where that risk is and what kind of return I might get for taking that risk. Prioritizing your risk is super important. The next one is contribution tripwires. How much do you have in that fund? How much are you going to continue to put into that fund? How much is your employer going to put into that fund? Are we going to have enough once we get to that target date? And then the other one is the other stuff tripwire. You know, people are living a lot longer. So how do these target date funds coordinate with pensions, Social Securities, other sources of income? If you don't have a plan and you don't understand things, please feel free to give us a call. We're always willing to help teach you. Plan to retire well. Hi, my name is Jack Klunder, and I am a financial advisor with Centennial Wealth Advisory. I work out of our Cadillac office, and we specialize in retirement planning. We take a very holistic approach. So if you are nearing or in retirement and you have questions that you want to go over, please give the number on the screen a call, and we can have and set up a free, no obligation consultation.
Make the most of Social Security. Although Social Security isn't designed to cover all of your income needs, it's an important part of the retirement puzzle. Download our free booklet on the Social Security decisions at cen-wealth.com and learn how to optimize Social Security for your situation, why timing is so important when it comes to your benefits, ways to supplement your Social Security, and more. There is no cost and no obligation. Simply go to cen-wealth.com, scroll down, and click the download link to get your free booklet on the Social Security decisions.
Finding a reputable business shouldn't require luck or chance. But how can you tell who you can trust? Pro tip: the BBB connects people with businesses they can trust. So think of the BBB as the better. Check with the BBB first, because better businesses are honest and commit to high ethical standards bureau. That's why they're better. Always look for the sign of a better business and find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
Investing is a broad topic, but it has very, very important implications on your life. So it's very important that you understand all the lingo or jargon involved in financial planning. So what I'd like to do today is kind of go over a few different confusing or uncommon terms in the financial world. Kind of brings me back to my early days in flight school here at NMC in Traverse City. They did an introductory flight to kind of make sure that you still wanted to be in flight school. They wanted to see if you really wanted to fly. And I remember sitting in that little Cessna plane next to the flight instructor, and he'd call the tower over the radio, and they said a whole bunch of stuff, numbers, abbreviations, all kinds of stuff that I had no idea what was going on. The one thing I did catch though was that you're cleared for takeoff, and that was all that really mattered at that point. But like flying, you need to know what's going on. You need to understand all these terms and lingo so you know where to go. So that control tower was telling us, hey, you got to take this runway or this taxiway to get to this runway, and the altimeter setting's this, the wind direction's that, and I had no idea. Well, financial planning and the financial world, there's lots of lingo that you need to understand as well. So some common terms or lingo that I see often are, okay, one question is, what is the difference between stocks and equities? And that's very simply, they're the same exact thing. So stocks, when you own a stock position, you own stock in a company. Well, that stock in that company is essentially equity in that company. So that term, stocks and equities, they're interchangeable, okay? The next one that I see very frequently confused is index funds versus mutual funds. So index funds are very simply investments that's tracking an indice. So a very common one is the S&P 500 index. So you invest in an index that's tracking that indice. Okay? Now, a mutual fund is more actively managed. Okay? The index fund is passively managed. The mutual fund is more actively managed. Now, when we have a mutual fund, obviously you can invest in various things according to your risk tolerance, but because it's actively managed, it's usually much more expensive for you. So there's going to be a higher fee with that mutual fund. Whereas the index fund, much more passive, you're just kind of riding the waves of whatever index you're tracking there. And the next one that's very important to understand is opportunity cost. Okay, so this is the cost that you're giving up by making one decision over another. So a prime example of this right now is with interest rates so high, a lot of people are thinking, okay, you know, I got this cash on the side, I should invest in these CDs. CDs are paying north of 4.5% right now. So it's a great investment. But what's another investment that you could put your money to work in and potentially get more return from that? Well, that would be your opportunity cost. Okay, so let's say that you put your money into an index fund that's tracking the S&P 500. Well, over the last 50 years, the S&P 500 has averaged just north of 10% annual rate of return. Now, would you get that guaranteed over this next year like you would a CD? Who knows, right? Definitely not guaranteed if you're talking about investing in the stock market. So that's your opportunity cost for picking that CD over another potential investment. And then finally, compound interest, okay? That's a big one, and it's so magical in the investing world. In fact, we got a slide here on the screen that I like to go over with you. And this is really what I like to show my younger clients as far as the starting early, the benefits of getting started investing right away. So in this scenario, we've got a client that's 25 years old. He's starting with $5,000 in his retirement portfolio, and he's investing $250 per month. If we invest over the next 35 years at that 7% average annual rate of return, you can see on this screen that he'd have north of $500,000 in his retirement plan when he retires at the age of 60. Now, what compound interest means is you're investing in some sort of investment, and those interest or the returns on that investment is reinvested and is growing as well. So when you have time on your side like this gentleman does, well, you got 35 years to grow those assets. He only put in $100,000, and yet his portfolio grew to over $500,000. So that's just the magic of compounding interest, and something you want to be well aware of.